In the affluent community of Olmos Park, Texas, just north of downtown San Antonio, life moves at a gentle rhythm. Tree-lined streets, million-dollar homes, and the hum of luxury SUVs. It's the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where success and reputation are everything. And that's exactly where Suzanne Simpson built her dream life. A respected luxury realtor, Suzanne was known for her bright smile, her dedication to clients, and her undeniable charm. Friends described her as the woman who could light up any room. She was also a devoted mother of 4, deeply involved in her children's lives, school events, and charity work. She had it all: beauty, success, and a marriage that, from the outside, seemed picture perfect. But behind those polished walls, something darker was brewing. Before we dive deeper into this shocking story, if you enjoy detailed true crime documentaries based on real investigations, don't forget to subscribe to Dark True Crime. Every week, we uncover the hidden stories behind the headlines, real cases, real people, and the truths that shake entire communities. Now, let's go back to the night it all began. It was October 6th, 2024, a warm Saturday evening in Alamo Heights, one of San Antonio's most exclusive neighborhoods. That night, Suzanne and her husband Brad Simpson were invited to an event at the Argyle, a private members-only club known for its old money prestige. Guests recalled the couple arriving together, Suzanne in an elegant blue dress, Brad in a tailored navy suit. To most, they looked like the perfect pair, smiling, comfortable, successful. But those who paid attention saw tension. Subtle at first, an uneasy glance, a forced smile, the kind of thing people overlook at glamorous parties. Later that night, several attendees would tell investigators that the couple had an argument near the bar. Nothing loud, nothing that drew too much attention, but it was enough that one guest described it as uncomfortable. Around 11:30 p.m., the couple left the Argyle and headed home to their residence in Olmos Park. It would be the last time Suzanne was seen alive. At 12:18 a.m., Suzanne's mother received a disturbing phone call. Suzanne's voice was shaky. She said she'd been assaulted by Brad. She didn't go into detail, only that she was scared. Her mother later told police that Suzanne promised to call again once things calmed down. That call never came. Over the next several hours, neighbors reported hearing shouting from the Simpson residence. One neighbor described it as violent, like furniture being moved or thrown. Another claimed to hear a woman crying. At 3:07 a.m., home security footage from a nearby house showed Brad's black Range Rover leaving the driveway. It was gone for roughly 45 minutes. When it returned, Brad was alone. By Sunday morning, October 7th, Suzanne's phone had gone silent. Texts from friends went unanswered. Calls went straight to voicemail. When Suzanne failed to show up for a scheduled open house later that day, something completely out of character, her assistant tried reaching Brad. He claimed Suzanne had gone to stay with a friend for a few days. But that explanation didn't add up. Suzanne's purse, phone, and car keys were all found inside the house. By Monday, her family reported her missing. The San Antonio Police Department launched a missing persons investigation. At first, officers treated it as a voluntary disappearance, a woman stepping away after a domestic dispute. But that theory quickly unraveled when detectives reviewed phone records. Suzanne's cell service had been suspended within hours of her disappearance by Brad himself. Detectives began digging deeper. They obtained a search warrant for the Simpson home and found signs of a struggle, a broken vase, scuffed flooring, and traces of blood on the baseboard near the staircase. Forensic tests later confirmed the blood matched Suzanne Simpson's DNA. Meanwhile, surveillance footage from a Home Depot captured Brad purchasing cleaning supplies, bleach, garbage bags, gloves, just hours after Suzanne was last heard from. And then there was something even more chilling. Brad was also seen on camera at a waste disposal site outside San Antonio around 4 a.m. When confronted by police, Brad claimed he was getting rid of old garden debris. But investigators didn't buy it. A husband's story. As suspicion grew, Brad maintained his innocence. In interviews, he appeared calm, collected, even confident. He told police that Suzanne had been under stress and needed space. He insisted she had left voluntarily after an argument. But detectives found inconsistencies in his timeline, particularly between the hours of 2:30 and 4 a.m. when his phone went offline. Neighbors also told police they saw Brad's vehicle backed up close to the garage door, trunk open, early that morning. It was around this point that Suzanne's mother, in tears, appeared on local news, pleading for her daughter's return. Suzanne wouldn't just leave her children. She wouldn't go anywhere without telling someone, she said. Something happened to her that night. If you're still watching and following this story closely, take a second to subscribe and turn on notifications. These stories take hours of research and cross-checking real reports to bring you verified, factual, true crime storytelling, the kind you won't find anywhere else. Now back to the investigation. The break in the case. 3 days later, on October 9th, Brad Simpson was arrested, initially on domestic assault and unlawful restraint charges. Detectives had enough probable cause to believe Suzanne didn't simply walk away. During a second search of the Simpson home, investigators used luminol, a chemical that reveals traces of blood invisible to the naked eye. What they found was shocking. Streaks of blood up the staircase and faint splatter on the landing wall. They also discovered a section of carpet that had been recently replaced. When asked, Brad claimed their dog had an accident, but the stains were human blood and they matched Suzanne. Police declared the case officially a homicide investigation. As news broke, the story dominated Texas headlines. Local papers ran the headline, "Beloved realtor missing after exclusive club party." Friends described Suzanne as pure light. Others said her marriage had been rocky for years, that Brad had a temper, and Suzanne had considered leaving multiple times. Reporters began piecing together a pattern, lavish appearances masking control and manipulation behind closed doors. Suzanne's clients, family, and colleagues organized candlelight vigils. Posters appeared across San Antonio reading, "Bring Suzanne home." But as days turned into weeks, the hope of finding her alive began to fade. On October 31st, detectives received a call from a waste management site employee. They'd noticed an unusual late-night dump logged in their records. Around the same time, Brad's Range Rover was spotted. When investigators examined the dump zone, they discovered a large tarp, partially buried under construction debris. Inside were traces of blood and a small piece of jewelry, a broken gold bracelet engraved with SS. The bracelet was confirmed to belong to Suzanne Simpson. At that moment, police knew this wasn't a disappearance anymore. It was murder. As Brad Simpson sat quietly in his San Antonio home, unaware that police were closing in, detectives were already preparing the arrest warrant. What they found next, inside the Simpson residence, would not only confirm their worst fears, but reveal the chilling truth of what really happened after that party at the Argyle. When detectives opened a homicide investigation into the disappearance of Suzanne Simpson, the quiet streets of Olmos Park no longer felt safe. What once looked like a picture of wealth and stability had become the center of a mystery, one that was about to expose dark secrets buried behind closed doors. After days of combing through phone records, surveillance footage, and financial data, investigators began piecing together what had really happened on the night of October 6th, 2024. They already had Suzanne's last phone call to her mother, a call that ended with her saying she had been assaulted. They had the broken furniture, the bloodstains on the staircase, and the suspicious purchases Brad made in the early morning hours. But now, they had something else: Brad's movements. Using cell tower data, detectives discovered that Brad's phone had pinged near a remote landfill site just outside San Antonio, the same location where the tarp and bracelet were found. What was he doing there at 4 a.m.? When confronted, Brad said he was dumping yard waste. But his story began to crumble when investigators reviewed receipts from that same night. He had purchased industrial-strength cleaning supplies, heavy-duty gloves, and plastic sheeting from Home Depot, just hours after the party at the Argyle. Brad's behavior raises questions. In the days following Suzanne's disappearance, Brad seemed oddly composed. He attended church with their children. He told neighbors Suzanne had gone to stay with a friend. One neighbor later recalled seeing Brad washing his Range Rover in the early morning hours of October 7th. Another said he saw a large, wet patch on the driveway that looked like it had been scrubbed clean. When detectives examined the vehicle, they noticed traces of blood on the carpeted trunk floor. DNA tests would later confirm it was Suzanne's blood. But without a body, prosecutors couldn't yet charge him with murder. The case was strong, but circumstantial. If you've been following this case so far, take a moment to subscribe to Dark True Crime. Every week we cover real, verified cases with no dramatization, just truth, evidence, and the voices of those who deserve to be remembered. Now, back to the story. Investigators pulled surveillance footage from the Home Depot in Alamo Heights. There he was, Brad Simpson, wearing a big cap and hoodie, walking down the cleaning aisle at 3:42 a.m. He loaded his cart with bleach, heavy-duty trash bags, a mop, and several bottles of ammonia. Minutes later, he paid in cash. To the detectives, it was a chilling sequence. A husband whose wife had just been reported missing, calmly shopping for cleaning materials in the middle of the night. When questioned, Brad brushed it off. He said their dog had vomited on the carpet and he needed to clean it up before the kids woke up. But the forensic evidence didn't lie. The blood pattern on the staircase wasn't from a pet accident. It was spatter, the kind that results from force. Then came a crucial break. A security guard at a car wash off Broadway Street came forward with footage from October 7th, around 5:30 a.m. It showed Brad pulling up in his black Range Rover and spending nearly 40 minutes meticulously cleaning the vehicle, wiping the trunk, the sides, and even the interior handles. When he was done, he used 2 rolls of paper towels and dumped them into a trash bin at the site. Detectives retrieved those bins days later. Tests revealed traces of blood and human tissue. There was no longer any doubt that Suzanne had met with violence. Meanwhile, Suzanne's mother, Linda Clark, held press conferences begging for answers. Quote, "My daughter was happy. She loved her children. She was planning our family Christmas. She didn't just disappear. Friends joined search parties through wooded areas outside San Antonio. Volunteers carried flashlights, drones, and hope, but they found nothing. Every day without answers made the case harder to bear." By mid-October, the local community began to turn against Brad. Reporters swarmed the Simpson residence. Neighbors described seeing him pacing in the yard, smoking constantly, avoiding eye contact. Behind the scenes, detectives were building their case piece by piece. When they subpoenaed Brad's financial records, they discovered that in the days following Suzanne's disappearance, he had withdrawn $20,000 in cash and contacted a real estate attorney about liquidating property. It looked like he was preparing to run. Then, investigators obtained Brad's Google search history. Among the entries were phrases like, "How long before blood smell goes away? Can you track a cell phone that's turned off? Body decomposition time, Texas heat." That was enough for authorities to upgrade the case. On October 31st, the Bexar County District Attorney authorized a murder warrant. Brad Simpson was arrested at his home the next morning. Police footage captured the moment officers surrounded the Simpson property. Brad appeared at the door in casual clothes, calm, emotionless. As officers handcuffed him, one detective recalled that he didn't ask why or what's this about. He simply said, "You'll never find her." Those 5 words chilled everyone on the scene. Inside the house, investigators uncovered more disturbing evidence. A large section of recently replaced carpet, still damp underneath. Cleaning supplies matching those from the Home Depot receipt. A journal belonging to Suzanne, tucked away in a drawer, with the final entry dated 2 days before she vanished. In it, she had written, "Brad's temper is getting worse. I need to leave before it's too late." By early November, prosecutors felt confident they could bring charges. Brad was indicted on second-degree murder, evidence tampering, and abuse of a corpse, though Suzanne's remains had not yet been found. He pleaded not guilty. His defense team argued there was no physical proof of death, only speculation. But the timeline, the calls, the blood, the footage, painted a hauntingly clear picture. Media and public pressure. The case gained national attention. Major outlets from People magazine to Fox News covered the story of the missing Texas realtor. Social media exploded with hashtags like #JusticeForSuzanne and #FindSuzanneSimpson. Some online sleuths speculated that the Brad had buried her body near the family's lake property outside Kerrville. Others believed he had used construction dumpsters to dispose of evidence. Police searched both sites extensively. They found nothing conclusive. But in the eyes of the public, Brad was already guilty. Still, without Suzanne's body, conviction would be difficult. And then came a stunning development, a breakthrough lead. In late November 2024, a local landscaper contacted authorities after seeing news coverage of the case. He claimed he had been hired by Brad on October 7th, the day after Suzanne vanished, to fill and level a section of ground behind a rental property the Simpsons owned. Detectives obtained a warrant and began digging. Beneath layers of soil and gravel, they found a single silver earring, identical to the one Suzanne was wearing in photos from the night of the Argyle party. Tests confirmed her DNA on it. This was no longer speculation. It was proof. Brad Simpson was now facing life in prison if convicted. Yet through it all, he refused to speak. No confession, no explanation. He simply told his lawyer, "There's more to the story than they know." As prosecutors prepared for trial, detectives returned once more to the Simpson home. They believed something had been overlooked, a clue hidden in plain sight. One investigator reportedly said, "Oh, we hit her close to home, we're standing on the answer." And then, during a quiet December morning search, as officers examined the lower level of the house, a technician noticed discoloration on the drywall beneath the staircase. When they removed the first panel, a foul odor filled the air. What they found inside would confirm the truth that everyone had feared and reveal how close Suzanne had been all along. When detectives began removing the wall beneath the staircase of the Simpson home, the air turned thick with dread. For weeks, they had searched miles of woods and lakes. But in the end, the answer was right here. Inside the house Suzanne had built with the man she trusted most. Behind the drywall, they uncovered a black plastic tarp, duct-taped tightly and wedged between the framing beams. The moment the first corner was pulled free, a wave of decay hit the team. It was her. Inside the tarp were the skeletal remains of a woman wrapped in a floral blanket. DNA later confirmed the identity: Suzanne Marie Simpson, the 38-year-old realtor who had been missing for nearly 2 months. Her cause of death: blunt force trauma to the head, consistent with a blow from a heavy object. Police also found a hammer tucked under insulation in the basement ceiling, with blood traces matching Suzanne's DNA. It was no longer a missing persons case. It was murder, clear and deliberate. If you've been following this case from the beginning, take a second to subscribe to Dark True Crime. Every story we share is built from verified reports and real evidence. No dramatization, no exaggeration. Now, back to Suzanne's story. After forensic confirmation, Brad Simpson was re-interviewed in custody. At first, he maintained his innocence, claiming he had no idea how Suzanne's remains ended up there. But as detectives laid the evidence on the table, the hammer, the tarp, the blood, the earring, his resolve cracked. After nearly 6 hours, Brad finally spoke. That night, "She said she was leaving me, taking the kids. I lost control. I didn't mean to." Close reportedly broke at that point. He confessed that after striking Suzanne, he panicked. He tried to clean the blood, then hid her body under the stairs, a space he thought no one would ever check. He said he planned to move her later, but police presence around the neighborhood made it impossible. For 58 days, Suzanne's body lay just a few feet away from where their children slept. The trial of Bradley Thomas Simpson began on March 3, 2025, in the Bexar County District Court. The courtroom was filled with tension. Suzanne's family in one row, Brad's relatives in another, separated by deputies. Prosecutors painted the picture of a man consumed by jealousy and greed, someone who couldn't stand the idea of losing his image, his marriage, and the money tied to Suzanne's successful real estate business. They introduced the journal entry, the Home Depot footage, and Brad's chilling search history. They showed the jury photos of the staircase, the tarp, and the hammer. The defense, meanwhile, tried to frame the murder as a crime of passion, claiming Brad had no intent to kill, only to silence the argument. But it wasn't enough. After 5 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a unanimous verdict: guilty of first-degree murder and evidence tampering. As the judge read the sentence, life in prison without parole, Brad stared blankly ahead. Suzanne's mother wept quietly in the front row. When reporters later asked her how she felt, she simply said, "Doesn't bring my daughter back. But maybe now she can rest." That followed, the story of Suzanne Simpson shook the community. A woman admired for her success, her warmth, and her devotion to her children, taken by the very person who vowed to protect her. Her 4 children now live with their maternal grandparents. The house in Olmos Park remains vacant, its staircase sealed and reconstructed. Neighbors still avoid walking past it at night. Some say they can't help but look at the window where Suzanne's light once glowed, a silent reminder of the life that ended too soon. The discovery of Suzanne's remains reignited conversations nationwide about domestic violence, hidden behind wealth and perfection. Experts on morning news shows discussed how financial dependency, social pressure, and reputation often trap victims in abusive relationships. A local nonprofit, the Suzanne Foundation, was established in her memory, dedicated to helping women safely leave controlling partners. Her mother, Linda Clark, now speaks publicly at awareness events. Her message is simple: controls your freedom, your voice, or your safety. That's not love. That's danger. The story reminds us that evil doesn't always wear a mask or lurk in shadows. Sometimes it smiles across the dinner table. Sometimes it wears a wedding ring. And sometimes it lives just beneath the stairs. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching this full documentary on dark true crime. We bring you real, documented cases every week. Mysteries, disappearances, and crimes that reveal the darkest corners of human behavior. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a news story. Until next time, stay aware, stay safe.